Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on another episode of the Entrepreneurial Mindset Show. My name is Florian Lungu. I'm so delighted you join us. Today, we're going to look at the persistent mindset. So, this is something that it's one of the principles from a best-selling book by Napoleon Hill. This book, Think and Grow Rich, has literally changed my life, and I believe I'm an example of this persistence mindset. And I really want to take a moment today and share with you some of the things that I learned by developing persistence and by applying the principles in this book to my life. You know, we're talking about entrepreneurial mindset, but in other words, it's success mindset because if you think about that, these are mindset that you could apply to every situation in your life. But most importantly, if you have a business, if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to start a business, this is for you. So this is part of a series of shows that I do every Monday at 5 p.m. Stockholm time, and where I cover one of these different entrepreneurial mindsets. And today we're going to look at the persistent mindset, right? And so I'm going to share with you some slides here, and I'm going to go through what I prepare for us, and you would see that we need to have some basic understanding before we go deeper. So first thing that I want us to have the same understanding and kind of the definition of what mindset is. I come to the realization that mindset it's a set of attitudes, beliefs, expectations about a situation or an outcome. And isn't that true that the mindset, or in other words, the thinking that will apply to any situation, to any any goal or any purpose or any business, isn't that true that the mindset, the thinking that we apply to that will influence the results that we're going to get? I believe it is. And I believe that mindset transpires in everything we do. Whatever you're doing right now, whatever you're working on right now, you're using your thinking and the approach you have to that situation, it will define in big proportion your outcome. So that's why I believe if we are able to improve our mindset just a little bit, if we are able to change the perspective that we have upon things, if we do that, we're gonna be, maximizing the impact that we can make. We're gonna maximize the results that we can have, and so that's why I'm so delighted to be with you today, and I'm so delighted to share this with you because I believe we can improve our mindset just a little bit. You know, we will be changing the trajectory of our life. So let's dive into the lesson. So when we say about improving our mindset, what we're actually saying, we're talking about, you know, changing your perspective, right? Now, Wayne Dyer said that when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And this is what we want to do here. I want to help you, maybe just a little bit change a perspective that you might have about persistence, right? Maybe add a little bit to the understanding that you have, maybe add a little bit to the experience that you have, and just with that slight change in perception might come different results. So let's look at this, right? So today we're talking about a persistence mind, and we say that this is shifting from asking ourselves how long it's going to take into having this whatever it takes mindset. Think about that. So many times we are caught up into the doing of things, and we're wondering how long it's going to take. Like someone, a very good example is someone trying to release some weight. Maybe they are on a diet, and they're asking themselves, how long is going to take this diet, right? When I started my business, that was my mindset. How long is going to take me until I could quit my job? How long is going to take me until I get to this level of income? How long is going to take me until I get as successful as this other person? How long is it going to take? That was the kind of question that I was asking myself, and I came to the realization that actually if we set a deadline to a goal, right, like in my case, quitting my job, right, if I set a deadline to that, is what I say that's a dead goal, right? So a goal with a deadline, I say it's a dead goal. And why is that? Let me just unpack a little bit, right? So a goal with a deadline it's a dead goal. Why is that? It's because if we start on any journey towards any goal with the expectation that it's going to take this long, right? That by this date, I'm going to have this, or by this date, I'm going to do that, or by this date, I'm going to have this amount of clients, by this date, I'm going to have this income or this sales level. And if we start our journey with that kind of mindset, what happens is that, what if we don't get it by that date? What does it mean? It means that we fail? It means that we're never gonna get it? I think it only means that we got the date wrong. And so that's why, if we focus on a date, on a specific date, and we want to be there by this time or by the other time, what will happen is that we will gonna focus on the deadline, and we're gonna, I know we need a deadline because we want to have this sense of urgency that we're working towards something. But what I learned to be even more important is that, in entrepreneurship, this is not a 3 years goal. This is not a 6 years goal. This is not a 10 years goal. Now, if you think at and if you look at all successful entrepreneurs, they're in the long term game. They're in the long term game, and they're staying in the game as long as it takes, right? Think about Elon Musk, right, and SpaceX, or Virgin Atlantic. Think about all of those, amazing projects. Would you think that Richard Branson or Elon Musk would say, well, okay, so if I don't get that by 2022, you know what? Well, okay, I'm gonna stop. I don't think so. So they are in for the for the long term game, and it doesn't even matter if they get to this level or the other level by this date or later or sooner. That's just the process, right? So how can we stay in the game? Well, we need persistence, right? And Napoleon Hill, in this book Thinking Grows, that I'm sharing, it's did a phenomenal job to kind of give us some really good tools and understanding of what persistence is and how can we develop. And I'm going to share some of those with you. But before I go there, let's just look at this quote from him, right? He says that there might be no heroic connotation to the word persistent, but the quality is to the character of man what carbon is to still. Think about that. There might be no heroic connotation to the word persistent, right? If you think about it, persistent is not a sexy word, right? So someone might not use I'm persistent as one of their qualities. If you ask them, what are you good at? What are some of your strengths or qualities? Well, people might not use that, persistence as saying, well, I'm persistent, right? But the quality is to the man what carbon is to steel. What does it mean? It toughens us. It makes us stronger. So we really want to develop this persistence. And how can we develop persistence, right? Yeah, we need a specific mindset. That's why I call this the persistent mindset, right? And there is a difference between people that focus on how long it's gonna take, and they ask themselves how long it's gonna take, and other people that have this whatever it takes mindset, right? They will be in the game, and then for how long is gonna require. It doesn't matter how long, right? Because think about that. If I will tell you that, because that was one of my questions, how long is gonna take me to quit my job, right? And eventually it took me 3 years, but if someone would have told me 3 years, I would have said, well, that's too long. That was my thinking. I'll be honest with you, right? When I started my business in 2016, I didn't think that I will do that, side by side, as a side hustle for 3 years. I thought that I will be quitting my job, much sooner. I thought about that, 1 year after I started, but it took me 3 years. And if someone would have told me it will take you 3 years, what would I have done? I would have quit. I don't think so. I would probably have still been in the game, but I think the process would have been a lot easier for me, because instead of me focusing on, when I'm going to be able to quit my job, I would just stay in the process, because if I know it will have taken me, 5 years, then okay, I know it's 5 years. Let's stay in the process for 5 years. But my expectation was that it will be a lot faster, right? Because I was focusing on how long it's gonna take, until I'm able to make the income from the business, so the business will stay in my life, and I'm able to quit my job. And so let's look at some of the differences between the two kind of mindsets, shall we? So you'd see on the left, the mindset who thinks, how long is gonna take, until I get to this level, and we say that they're focusing on the short-term gain rather than the long-term gain, right? So they're focusing on the gain, on the results, rather than being in the process and staying in the process for long enough until they get what it is that they want to get, right? Let's look at the next one here. The ones with how long it's going to take mindset, they think on quick fixes rather than sustainable solutions. They look for celebrating and celebrate achievement, right? They celebrate results, while the other ones celebrate learning, right? That's a big difference there. They're always in a hurry because there is not enough time in the day to achieve everything that you want, and then you have a deadline, you have to keep the deadline, and you have to work towards that, while the other one enjoys the process, right? They are in a process of growth. um, the first one never feels that there is enough time. You hear them, I never have enough time for doing what it is that I want. But when you know that you're in for the long game, right? When you know that you don't plan to retire when you will be old, then who who cares how long? Time is not the problem, right? Because as long as you're gonna live, you're gonna progress, and you're gonna do that, and you're gonna be in the game, right? Who cares? You don't want to retire. You don't have a retirement date, right? That's successful entrepreneurs. Think about, again, Elon Musk. Think about Richard Branson. Do they plan to retire? I don't think so, right? So that's a different mindset. You see, again, the first one focuses on the destination, while whatever it takes mindset focuses on the progress. Like we celebrate progress, and we look at making progress from today to tomorrow rather than a destination, because the worst thing is that only if I would have this level of income, then I will be able to. Well, when I will retire, then I will be able to enjoy life. If I would have this money in my bank account, then I will be able to be happy. Or if I would have the house or the wife or the spouse or whatever it is that you convince yourself you need, then you're going to be happy. Well, that's not how life is. You can be happy today. And you say, well, Florian, but yeah, but those are, circumstances. They are conditions, circumstances of your life. The truth is that you could choose how you feel in any moment. And you could choose to feel happy and be in the progress, right? Be in the process, right? And make progress rather than focusing on a destination. Because as soon as you reach the and I know that, as soon as you reach the higher level of income, what happens is that would you be settled? No, you will set a new goal for the next level, right? Or maybe you would be settled. But you want to just focus on progress. You want to focus on, making progress every single day. And finally, the person that looks like how long is going to take, they're seeking results rather than the person staying in the game for how long it takes. They seek growth, right? There's the difference between growth and results, right? So this is what we want to do. We want to make the shift between focusing on goals to focusing on growth and stay in the process, right? This is a persistence mindset. They stay in the process, no matter how long it's going to take, as long as they are alive, right? They are in the progress. They are in the process. They are making progress, right? So let's look at another idea here from Napoleon Hill. He says something like that, be persistent, no matter how slowly you might at first have to move, because with persistence comes success. And he says it doesn't matter how our conditional circumstances look like today. As long as we make progress and we're persistent and we're showing up, right? We're making progress. And with that kind of persistence, it will come success. And think about it. When I started, I give this example. When I started to exercise, so I had this back pain, and I went to see a chiropractor. I was sitting at my desk for 10-12 hours a day, and I really had this hunch position, and I tried to correct that, but I had a back pain, and I went to see my chiropractor, and he suggested I would start to do some exercising, and I told him, well, um, I'm not able. His name is Timo. Timo, I'm not able to do exercise because I'm busy. I don't have the time. And he helped me kind of think into that and say, oh, okay, Florian, so how many push-ups, for example, would you be able to do? And I said, well, I was really out of shape. And I said, well, maybe 10. So, and how long is it going to take you to do 10 push-ups? And it dropped. For me, I realized it was I was procrastinating. It was finding an excuse for not doing that. And then as soon as I started doing it, I started with 5. I was not even able to consistently do, 10 push-ups every single day. But I started with 5. So my first thing in the morning was 5 push-ups. And then I could increase to 10 and then to 20. But for a long time, for about 6 weeks, it was 5 because I needed to build that muscle. So I started with 5, and then in 6 months I was doing 50 every single morning. The first thing in the morning, 50 push-ups, right? And then I stabilized at about 30, and I was doing 30 for years. Now I kind of slipped into not doing those, and I need to go back to it. But when I first started, I started with 5. So no matter how slow you might need at first to go, start. That's the most important, right? Because with persistence, you would win. But without persistence, you would be defeated. Even before you start. But with persistence, you will win. And persistence is a state of mind, and therefore it can be cultivated. So let's look at some ways we could cultivate persistence. How can we develop this state of mind of persistence, right? So the first thing here that comes to mind is that we need to have a definite of purpose, right? So these are fundamental causes for persistence. Because it's a state of mind, like all state of mind, it can be cultivated, it can be developed, and there are some specific causes, right? And if we have these things, right, if we know these truths about ourselves, we will start developing persistence. So how can we develop persistence? We need to work on these things. We need to have a definite purpose, right, and take action to achieve that purpose. If we don't have a purpose, then how can we develop persistence for what, right? The second one here, it's an intense desire to actually fulfill that purpose. We need to have and develop self-reliance. If we have self-reliance, it's easier to develop persistence, right? We don't need to um, kind of rely on other people. And if we don't rely on other people, it's easier because we know our inner strength, we know our value, and then it's easier to develop persistence, right? Then we look at creating plans. If we have plans and we know what we want to create, then it will be a lot easier for us to develop persistence. And we need accurate knowledge that our plan are sound, right? And when I know I have a plan that I know it works, right, or it works at least to the extent that I can I can predict, right? Because I don't know if my plan would work, but if I have the knowledge, right? For example, if I have the knowledge that if me doing the 5 push-ups in the morning, I have the knowledge that that is going to improve my back pain, and then I can see the results. Then I have a plan, right? I do those every single morning, and I have the knowledge knowing that if I do this, it's going to help me, right? So with that kind of knowledge, it's a lot easier to maintain persistence and to build persistence because I know that this works rather than guessing. I wonder if this will work. Or we're having what I say, it's blind faith, right? You have faith in someone. For example, at the beginning, I had faith in Timo, my chiropractor. I mean, I knew he knew what he was talking about. So then I didn't really believe the process will work for me, but I had faith in him. So I had that accurate knowledge that he kind of passed it on to me, and I said, well, this is going to work. So then let me stay into the process, right? Let's see another one, right? A cooperation in the spirit of harmony with other people, right? Think about that. You want to be part of a group of people, or have people around you that support you and then sustain you in your goals, right? Because how can you develop persistence? Because we all of us have ups and downs, and when we have those moments where we kind of doubt our belief or doubt our faith, right? Those moments, we need people around us to support us, right? So if we have people around us, it's easier to develop persistence, right? We need willpower, right? And willpower is actually a little bit different than what we think. So willpower is using the faculty of will in order for us to stay focused to our goal, right? What does it mean to be persistent? I'll give you a caveat here, because you could be persistent, you could be disciplined in doing the wrong things, right? This is something that I learned from one of my mentor, Christian Simpson. He shared that a few years back, and I was pondering on that, because I was I wouldn't see myself as someone being disciplined and persistent, right? I knew I was quite disciplined, but I didn't really have this element of you could be disciplined in doing the wrong things. And then if you look at people that complain about the results, complain about their life, you would see very clearly that they are very consistent and very persistent in doing things that do not serve them, right? They spend hours in front of a TV. They listen to their negative friends, and they listen to the negative news every single day. They are persistent in doing that. But at the end of the day, if you ask them if they're disciplined, if they're persistent, they will say they're not. So have this in mind. Willpower is being able to focus your attention to the attainment of your goal and be persistent to your goal. But it could also be that you are persistent in doing the wrong things. And that's a completely different lesson, where we need to look at, there's a study that I take people through Think and Grow Rich, where we look at, departure point, congruency with arrival point, right? We look at where we are today, what do we do, what kind of activities, how do we feel in our current life, and then we compare that with our future life, and we look at in what is not in congruence in our life, in our current life, with what it is that we want to create, right? Looking at a person that you want to be in 3 years in 3 years time, what kind of activities that does that person do? What kind of emails do they write? What kind of friends do they have? What do they eat? What kind of clothes they have in their cabinets, in the cupboards, in their what kind of car do they drive? And all of those things that you see the person from 3 years from now, doing, having, being, and compare that with where we are today, with where we are today. And from there, you'll be able to identify all of those things that are not in alignment with your future life. And you would see where might you be persistent in doing the wrong things, or things that do not serve you. But that's a completely different lesson, right? Um, if you're interested to join one of those lessons, or learn more about this specific part where we look at our departure point and our arrival point, go to tagr2021.com and join a challenge. We will start a challenge very soon, and it's completely free. You could join, and you could for 21 days we will look at each of these different principles that help us kind of recalibrate our vibrational frequency, and look at what in our current life is not a match for our future life. I really think it's a great program, and it's free. So go to tagr2021.com and join the challenge. So let's look at another one here. So we said willpower is our ability to stay focused on our goal, and then habit, right? And if you think about that, habit, it's the result of persistence, or actually habit is the main cause for persistence. If you, as I said, you could be persistent in doing the wrong things, you could have, habits that are, ingrained in your personality, and those habits would actually, you know have you be persistent in doing the wrong things. But the moment for example, my exercise, the moment I created a habit of exercise, then I become persistent, because I don't need to make the decision every single day if I should do it or not. I just, wake up from my bed, straight into the living room, open the door to get fresh air in, just in front of the door, do my push-ups, and I'm done, right? I don't need to make a decision every single day, because I created that habit, right? So habit creates persistence. So let's look at, why is this persistence so important, right? So why am I beating, here on persistence? Yeah, because, without persistence, uh, there is very little we can do. Because think about that, almost everything worthwhile, actually my mentor John Maxwell says that everything worthwhile, it's uphill, right? So everything worthwhile, it's uphill. What he means by that is that for us to create results that most people do not have, we need to stay in the game. We need to be persistent. We need to do things that other people are not willing to do. And we need to show up, right? Even on social media today. Now, the reason why social media doesn't work for most people is that they're not persistent. When I take entrepreneurs through our marketing strategy calls, and I sit with them and create the marketing strategy, they're doing also, they ask me, for how long do I need to do this? Well, depends on what it is that you want to achieve. But for how long this social media is going to matter? What do you mean? I mean, you post on Facebook for as long as Facebook it's one of the relevant platforms. If your audience is on Facebook, you post on Facebook. If your audience is on LinkedIn, you post on LinkedIn. And for how long? For how long LinkedIn it's still a platform where the attention is. So if the attention, or if people's attention is on Facebook, LinkedIn, now TikTok, right? Why wouldn't you be there? And why would you want to just do this for a period of time, right? So I don't understand when they ask me, for how long do I need to do this? And this is exactly what we're talking about today, right? This is the persistent mindset. So let's look at some more ideas, right? We say there is no substitute for persistence. And you know what? The majority of people are ready to throw their aims and purposes overboard and give up completely at the first sign of opposition or misfortune. So that's why they don't develop persistence. And there are some symptoms for persistence. If you ask yourself, Florian, how do I know if I have persistence or I don't? Okay, let's look at some symptoms of persistence, of lack of persistence, actually. So some of the symptoms of lack of persistence are these ones, right? So these are the real enemies of noteworthy success, right? Everything, as I said, worthwhile, it's uphill. And first, at the top of the list is fear of criticism. And I know for a fact that this is something that I struggle with, and I still struggle with at some point and some level. Because, well, if you're familiar at all with the DISC personality assessment, and if you're not familiar and you would like to take an assessment, if you're an entrepreneur, we have an entrepreneurial impact assessment. If you like to take an assessment, email me. Email florin@florinlungu.com, and put in the title DISC assessment or entrepreneurial assessment in the subject. And I'm gonna gift you with the key codes, so you would be able to kind of learn tremendous insight about your entrepreneurial mindset, your entrepreneurial personality. How do you create results? How do you sell? How do you communicate? How do you like to work in a team setup? And with this entrepreneurial impact assessment, I realized that I'm an I-type personality. This is what we call to be an influencer. And one of the fears, the biggest fears of my personality, is fear of criticism, right? And so many times this stood in front of my success, because I thought, well, what would people gonna think, if I quit my job, right? What would people gonna think if I go, with my engineering background, in a coaching training, personal development industry, to talk about entrepreneurship and help entrepreneur. Who am I to do that, right? What kind of results do I have to show? And all of these questions that pop up into my mind, all of these fears, right? What would my parents say, right? Now, recently we work in Denmark and we based in Sweden, and I'm from Romania. And when I again, Florina, my wife and I, we made this decision to move to Denmark. We said, my parents asked me, why are you moving again? Right? Isn't life good enough in Sweden? Aren't you satisfied with what it is that you have? And our peers, right? And so I know so many times I kind of diminished my plans, and I diminished kind of the action that I took because of fear of criticism, because of thinking what might other people think if I do this, or what might other people think and say if I fail, right? And so fear of criticism, it's at the top of the list of these symptoms of lack of persistence, right? uh, because this held so many people back, because if we allow the opinions of other people to influence what we think and what we do, well, we are at the mercy of the opinions of other people, and we allow their thinking to influence our results. And it's a full-time job to try to control and improve my thinking, let alone controlling someone else's actions, or their thinking, what they think about me. I have no influence upon that. So fear of criticism is really, really a huge one. It's at the top of the list here. But there are some more lack of organized plan, right? So if we don't have a plan to achieve what it is that we want, of course, we're not going to get there, right? Weakness of desire. If we don't have a strong enough desire, when we meet with temporary defeat, we'll quit and we don't develop persistence. Failure of clearly define exactly what one wants. This is one of the big ones, right? Something that I love asking people, on their birthday, I ask them, if everything would be possible, what would you love to create in your life before your next birthday? And so many times I get this, or sometimes, or actually most of the times I don't get any answer. And I believe this is a tough question, right? This is a challenging, a thought-provoking question, right? And most people don't know how to answer it. And many times I get, well, this is a good question. I have to think about it. Think about that. You ask someone what it is that they want to create in their life, before their next birthday, and they have to think about it. Well, again, if we don't know what it is that we want, it's very difficult to get it. Procrastination to act on ideas. We have ideas and we don't act on them, and we don't achieve them, right? Indecision. Again, we have the decision making, one of the mindset that we're going to cover, and we will look at how do successful people make decisions. But think about that, right? Indecision. It's again, if we, rather than making the decision, we postpone it and we look at, okay, would this be a best decision? Would this be, helping me, taking me in the direction of my goals? And we talk about purpose-driven decision making. We're gonna cover that on the decision making mindset. Searching all the shortcuts, right, to succeed, rather than paying the price for the process. And the habit of blaming others for one mistakes. This last one, it's a huge one. Think about that. So many people blame COVID for their situation right now. And I don't want to diminish, the effect of this virus, right? And it's sad. It's sad that so many people have been affected. But now we're 14 months in this thing. We cannot just use COVID as an excuse, right? I mean, for how long we're gonna use this, right? And it's a sorry excuse. So again, we don't want to blame other people, but these are enemies of of not worthy success. If we suffer from any of these ones, we'll not be able to achieve what it is that we want. But let's look at how can we develop actually the persistent mindset, shall we? Okay, so let me give you a 4-step process to develop persistence. The first, at the very top, is to define your purpose. You need to have a definite purpose, and you back that purpose by a burning desire for its fulfillment. So you want to ask yourself, and you want to go to the participant guide and ask the, answer the questions that are in the guide there, right? So for each of these lessons, we provide an entrepreneurial action guide, right? So we call that an entrepreneurial action guide because there's not only space for you to take notes as we go through this show, but also there are some questions that you could use, right? And for you to kind of spend a little bit of time in considering, right? So what is what you want to do? You want to go into your participant guide, in the action guide, and answer this question: what it is that you want? What's that purpose that you're you are meant to fulfill? What's your purpose? And kind of, um, do you have a burning desire for achieving it, or is just a wish, right? Or a want? I would like to, right? Well, that's not enough. I will do it, or it's my purpose to. So, what it is that you're called forward to in this world? What's the purpose that you're called forward to fulfill, right? For me, actually, it's empowering people through knowledge, through change thinking, empower people to see the resources within them, and to change their perception upon how the world operates and how they operate, and to have a broader understanding of how we operate as human beings and how the universe operates. And with that, we will be able to create better results, and much faster, and make a positive impact in the world. That's my purpose, to empower people to be able to see potential in themselves, and then export that potential and create businesses, create results, a better life for themselves, for their families, for the community. What I call to be a WH2 life, a wealthier, healthier, happier life. That's my purpose, to have that for me and for other people. So I really encourage you to take some time to go through the workbook and actually to answer those questions. So number two, a definite plan, right? Expressing continuous action. How can we create, what it is that we want if we don't have a plan, And then that plan, this is again, it might be a misunderstanding and we need to have a 10-step plan. No, we don't need a 10-step plan. We just need maybe, a 3-step plan. One idea that I had, it was like I didn't know where to start, and I said, okay, let me start with my connections, right? And I started with, when I first started to create courses for personal development, for adult education, I didn't know where to start. I asked some of my friends. I realized that there is an organization in Gothenburg, that supports, adult education, right? And I just contact them. They offer me a room. I could have a room. Then I just needed to fill that room with people that wanted to develop themselves. So I reached out to my Facebook network at the time, and I invited everyone I knew, to participate in these, free courses where we were studying John Maxwell's material. And that is how it started. So my first step was to find a room, invite people, and do a free course. And from there, people wanted to learn more, and then I developed, other programs and other products, and I realized that, from working with individuals that maybe were in a career or they just want to develop themselves, I realized that I can make a bigger impact if I empower entrepreneurs, which have a team, which have a business, which already making an impact, so we can maximize, my efforts. And that's how I, develop my, target audience and my niche toward working with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial mindset, as you can see today. But I started with, with one step. My one step was, find a room, and then secondly, we were still doing everything in person. First find a room, and secondly find people to speak to, create an audience. And that was my first steps. So look at what it is, one thing you could do, what it is, two things that you could do, maybe one, or a 2-step plan, a 3-step plan, something that will move you forward, and take action on that. That's what we want to say here. It's not about the 10 steps and knowing step number 10, and if you don't know the step number 10, don't do it. No, that's not what we refer about a definite plan. Third one, I think this is really, really important in today's world. A mind closed tightly against all negative and discouraging influences. And this is so difficult today because, unfortunately, there is no filter anymore on whatever goes out on the internet. If you think about it, how this happened before, you have newspaper and TV and radios. These were kind of the main three sources of information. So now, if you were, aware enough to choose your sources, you could find some, good, newspapers, trustworthy newspapers, radio channels, and TV channels where you could plug in for information, right? And that was quite okay. But still in there, you still had a lot of negative news because those news, sell better than positive news. But today, with no filter at all, where anyone can post whatever they want on social media, or when now all the commercial TV channels and newspapers and websites are have an interest, right? And many times are not your best interest. Their interest is not your best interest. What they're posting there is not in your interest. It's self-serving. They have people which pay for for advertising. They have shareholders that you eventually want profits, right? And so when you think about that, they're filtering what it is that they put in front of you. And if you don't pay attention to that, if you're not aware, you allow negative influence of now it's media, but also friends and family and people around you to just take you down. So what we say here, a mind closed tightly against all negative and discouraging influences. And finally, a friendly alliance with like-minded people, which will encourage you to follow through both your plans and your purpose. That's what we really believe is going to make a big impact for you. And this is not something that I came up with right now. This is the result of studying lives of of thousands of people. This is right from Thinking Grow Rich, from Napoleon Hill's principles and timeless, time-tested strategy and formula. So I really believe if this is something that, I mean, the beauty about it is that they don't require any amount of let's say uh, knowledge, right? So you don't have to be an expert, right? You don't have to be educated. I mean, you don't need a degree in order to do these four things. And they don't require that much time or effort, right? So if you think about that, anyone could actually do these four things. Anyone could actually work with this. So I believe, and this is something that I learned and I found in my life to be true, that those who have cultivated this habit of persistence seem to enjoy insurance against failure. Think about that. Do you have insurance against failure? Do you want to develop insurance against failure? I want, right? So why don't we just, take this seriously and give it some good thought? How can we apply these four principles in our lives? And how can we develop persistence? Because with persistence, you would win. But without persistence, you are defeated even before you start. So this was what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for tuning in. I look forward to see you again next week when we were gonna look at the confident mindset, right? We're gonna look how can we move from what I call to be blind faith, right? So this is kind of the fake it until you make it mindset to what we call to be faith based on understanding. And that's what I'm going to share with you to next week at the same time. So Stockholm 5 p.m., 11 a.m. Eastern time, we're going to look at the confident mindset. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to see you there. Take care. Bye bye.